Rabbi, I'm sorry I'm coming into this so late. Can you take 30 seconds and just give me a brief overall background of what Tanya
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, sure. I'm going to do that right here at the opening. All right. Okay. So, folks, welcome, a very warm welcome to our Thursday night adventure, also known as Think Different. This is exploring the book of Tanya. The book of Tanya is, in my opinion, listen, speaking from my opinion, where I sit, the most revolutionary, most important spiritual work published in the last 200-300 years. It's an incredible collection of Jewish wisdom, divine wisdom, Kabbalistic wisdom that's synthesized into a system of study that is meant to lead to a system of refined behavior. The goal of study is always to affect who we are and how we are. And the book of Tanya does an incredible job at kind of giving a picture of what that spiritual, what spiritual growth looks like, and charting a path for that. I discussed a few weeks ago, as we kind of introduced this the series. This is the seventh in our sessions. So I guess it would have been 7 weeks ago. So I mentioned that when it comes to spiritual activities, when it comes to spiritual path, many different approaches. Some people advocated perfection. Some people said, aim for perfection. Some people wrote books for tzaddikim, for perfectly righteous people. The Alter Rebbe, the founder of Chabad, wrote a very different book. He called it Sefer Shel Beinanim, which is the book of the Beinani, the book of the struggler, the one who is not perfect, the one who struggles with temptation, the one who struggles with all sorts of vices and all sorts of inner demons. And that's a very honest picture of who we are. Most of us, if not all of us, are far from perfect, and we're striving toward at least maintaining proper behavior, proper speech, and proper thought amidst all of the internal struggles. So the bottom line is Tanya, which we're studying, Tanya is designed to help us achieve an outer perfection, in other words, perfection in behavior and action, even when inside maybe we're not feeling so perfect. So for example, let's say inside you're feeling upset and angry, and you might want to unload on someone, or you want to really give it to them. Okay, that's how you feel. But do you have to? Right? Are we obligated to say everything that we feel? The answer is no. Right? We can control our feelings, we can control our actions and our speech, and even our thoughts. We can modify how we think and what we think. So this is one of the big ideas of Tanya. One of the big ideas of Tanya is that you and I can maintain healthy behavior even when inside we're not feeling so healthy. That's one idea. But in the chapters that we're exploring right now, we started with chapter 41, we're now into chapter 42. The chapters that we're studying right now, we're moving actually a little bit more inward. And we're starting to focus on how it is that not only in modifying or controlling behavior, but also how we might be able to affect our emotions inside. There's a little bit beneath the hood. So what's clear in Tanya is that you and I have the ability to control the external expressions of our soul. But what's going on inside is a little bit more difficult, but that's our course of study right now. That's what we're focusing on now. How to change the way you feel on the inside. Not just the way you behave on the outside, but the way you feel. And one of the big ideas of Tanya is that the mind always controls the heart. So if you want to change a feeling, then the key ingredient is changing what you're thinking about. By meditating or focusing on something different, on a different idea, that radically affects or can radically change our emotions and have a different feeling. Different thoughts equal different feelings. If you think the same things that you thought before, you're likely going to feel the same way you felt before. So if you're feeling not so good, number one, we have to be in control of our behavior. But number two, there's a way to change how you feel. Right? If we're not feeling good, we can change that. And it starts with the stimuli, the things that we put in front of our heads. So if we're feeling anxious or sad, I have a good antidote. And you're with me right here, studying Torah. Right? Put something else in front of your mind. Put something that speaks to purpose, that speaks to hope, that speaks to truth, that speaks to something higher than the grind, And that's a way to change the emotion. Okay, regarding chapter 42, which we're right in the middle of chapter 42, this is amidst the conversation in the book of Tanya about what it is to have love and to be in awe of God. Loving God and being in awe of God. Now, in any relationship, let's speak about human relationships. In any relationship, it's good to have emotions, right? Because if it's just robotic, if I don't feel anything towards you, I'm just doing. I'm just going to do. Obediently, I will do. Well, that's only going to last for so long. I mean, how long can you keep on doing if you don't feel? So the goal of these chapters in Tanya, and this it's kind of like a mapped progression of how to work on our spiritual perfection or spiritual progress. Perfection is probably not going to happen, but at least progress could happen. So on this roadmap, we're encountering this space of emotions. It's important to have emotions when it comes to relationships. It can't just be robotic. It can't be mechanical. Relationships need to have passion, need to have feeling. So the same thing is true in our relationship with our Creator, relationship with God, with our higher power. That relationship is meant to be one that's filled with love, a passionate love, as well as a passionate sense of awe. I don't know if passion is the right word, but a deep sense of awe and fear on one level, which we've qualified many, many times in this series, what fear is and what it isn't. So there's a sense of fear, awe, and respect toward God. Like in any relationship, one, ideally, let's talk about a husband and a wife, one not only loves their spouse, but respects their spouse. Right? That's a necessary ingredient in any relationship. If you just love, but don't have respect, that's quickly going to turn ugly. More often than not, yeah, I love them, but you know what? Love is very democratic. Love is very love without borders, right? You might love your spouse, but you might fall in love with someone else also. It's the respect, right? It's the respect that keeps you in bounds with that relationship and respectful of the other and keeping you away from entering into things that perhaps you shouldn't enter into. So people talk about relationships being built on love. That's great. Maybe that's Hollywood or whatever, but real relationships are built on love and respect, love and awe of the other, love and, on one level, fear. Again, not fear in an ugly sense, but fear in a, I don't want to hurt that person. I care about them too much. I don't want to hurt them, and I'm afraid to hurt them. Not because of what they're going to do. It's not a retribution fear of retribution, but it's just a fear of the very notion of violating that person's trust or violating that person's being and going against who they are and what this relationship is. So the same thing is true in our relationship with God. As it exists below, so it exists above. That we're meant to have a loving relationship with God as well as a sense of awe, fear, and respect vis-a-vis God. Now, when it comes to human beings, it's a work in progress, right? We're always working on our relationships and getting them to a healthier place. When it comes to God, it's even more difficult. At least with another person, you can see them, you can talk to them, right? When it comes to God, we pray and we talk to God during prayer, but God, it's a little bit harder. This is where the meditation comes in. So Kabbalah, in the book of Tanya, offers multiple forms of meditation, and they're all kind of centered around the same notion of more and more making God a reality to us by focusing more and more on God and what God has done and is doing for us and who and what God is. The more we focus on that, the more God becomes real. So last week I explained the thief conundrum. What was the thief conundrum? You have a thief who is about to break into a home and is praying to God for success, or at least not to get caught. And what's the conundrum, or what's the paradox? What's the big, well, let's call it a contradiction. The big contradiction is, here you are, not you, but here the thief is, right, breaking into a home and violating, going against what God wants, and at the same time is praying to God for success. That's kind of contradictory. I mean, that's a paradox. That's a conundrum. That's very hard to understand. And yet, human beings do it all the time, right? We do things all the time that kind of defies what we believe in, but at the same time, we still have our beliefs. And the reason, as we explained last week, is because what that means is our beliefs are theoretical and not practical. They're not strong enough to dictate our behavior. So, what this means is, in theory, we believe that God's in control, and in theory, we grant God this power, but in action, we're doing something perhaps that's contradictory to that. That's opposite to what that means, and that means that the faith that we have is not grounded in reality, or is not connected to our reality. What's missing, as we said last week, is the dat. Dat is the intellectual power of the soul that makes things real, that moves things, ideas, from theory to reality. So you can theoretically know about something, but forget about theoretically knowing about it, but what about practically? Like, does it actually affect your life? That's where dot comes in. So just to summarize a little bit of last week, and then we're going to jump into this week's discussion. So last week we explained that the big goal in life, one of the big goals in life, at least in our spiritual service, is to move God from theory to something real, right? To move God from something we theoretically profess to believe in. Yeah, I believe in God. What does that mean? I don't know. Right? To move it from that theoretical space to a practical space. No, I believe in God. God is real, and therefore X, Y, and Z. And therefore my life looks a certain way and doesn't look a certain way because of this very real belief. So the goal is to get to a real place in our belief. But it's not easy. It's not easy because we're connected, we're tethered so often to the here and now, and it's hard to make God so real that it actually affects our lives. It's hard to get that dot. We said last week that who helps with that? What helps with that? We said it's good to have a leader, a role model, like a Moses, who lives that life, and who's a really good, not only talks the talk, but walks the walk. It's good to have a role model. It's good to have someone that you can look at and say, you know what, that person, that person is really living it. To that person, this is real. This is not a theory. This is absolute, legitimately real. And when you have that role model, right, that helps us. That can help us explore that and discover that on our own as well. And that's kind of powerful. So we said last week that the more we connect with Moses, with that concept of a good role model, of a spiritual role model, the more our own dot is enhanced, and the more that's developed. All of that was last week. This week, if you saw the email that I sent out right before the class, or the Facebook post that I posted, so it's about, I'm calling it imprisonment, and it's about the imprisonment of the soul. So Kabbalah explains that the soul originates at the highest of heights. It is connected like nobody's business. The soul, the godly soul, in the very second chapter of Tanya, of this very book, we're chapter 42, 40 chapters prior, the author Rabbi writes in Tanya, the author writes that the soul, the godly soul, is a chelek eloka mimal mamash. He says it's literally a part of God above. That's kind of high, right? If you look at the various places you can come from or exist on, that's pretty high up. If you're originating as a piece of God, so to speak, that's pretty high up. So the godly soul originates. The truth is, it still is. It's a piece of God. But instead of being near God or part of Source, it's separated out from Source and sent down, 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 down into our reality. And the Kabbalists speak about the various levels of descent, various worlds and realms of this descent, of this process, called the Seder Hishtalshalut, which means the order or the chain of existence, where, again, think of a chain, right? Think of a chain with interlocking links. So and imagine you, instead of like being, let's say, a necklace, but you open it up, and now it's starting from, and you're holding it vertically from above to below, and it's hanging down. So you have the top of the chain and the bottom of the chain. Now they're all the steps are interlinked and interconnected. So there is kind of a step-by-step process by which it goes down, or it could go up, or which you can go up or down. But the point is that the soul starts all the way at the top, and now it's found all the way at the bottom. And it's therefore facing quite the challenge when it comes to spiritual connection. It's not easy for the soul to experience that spiritual connection, or that divine connection that it had once upon a time. It's very hard to experience that once again here on earth. Why? Because it's such a lowly place, it's such a lowly realm. Now, let me explain why it's called low. It's called low not from a spatial consideration or from a spatial place. It's called low in the sense that it's a realm. We live in a world where godliness is not obvious. God is not transparent, or more stated more precisely, the world is not transparent to God. When you look at the world, you look around, you walk outside, you look around, you don't immediately see God. You don't immediately see the author. Now, could you meditate on this? Could you come to this understanding yourself? Absolutely, and that's what we're talking about. We're talking about meditation, how to arrive at these truths through our pondering and through our thoughts. But the point is, the immediate reality is not one of God, it's one of self, one of ego, one of the world, materialism, physicality. It's not one of spirituality and godliness. So the soul, the deck is stacked against the soul. The soul comes down to earth, and it's in a completely foreign environment. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the example that's given in Kabbalah and Hasidic philosophy? Imagine the prince, the king's only son, born in royalty, a member of the royal family, an heir to the throne. And imagine growing up in this lap of luxury in the palace. Whatever you want, you have. You want a swing set? Oh, the biggest one ever. A bounce house? No problem. A trampoline? You got it. A bowling alley? A movie theater? You get the picture, right? A putt-putt course? Whatever you want. Imagine that reality. That's only the physical stuff. But imagine just the general sense of belonging and where I am and who I am. I have a different definition of self than the other person. I'm the prince. Yeah, imagine that reality. I'm not talking about in an arrogant way, but in this amazing way. Now, imagine if, God forbid, suddenly the prince is kidnapped and snatched away and taken away and put in some sort of slum situation, like in the slums of town, right? And the broken down part of town, where living in a small hut, with a dozen people, and maybe no running water. I'm just giving an example, right? Imagine like very difficult conditions. So going from the lap of luxury to the most difficult conditions, but more than that, not having a connection with the king anymore, at least on an obvious level. The day-to-day struggle is just survival. We're not talking about exalting in one's position as the prince. Now it's about survival. It's a completely different reality. And so is the story of the soul. Our soul, your soul, my soul, our souls began all the way up at the top. Whatever the top is, that's where they began. And now where are they? In this world. This is a very difficult world for the soul. This is not a very spiritually conducive reality. It's not. Now, can people do amazing things here? Of course, that goes without saying. Or maybe it should be said, and therefore I'm saying it. Absolutely. But the world itself, the nature of reality, what you look at, what you see when you look out at the world around you, you don't see spirituality. So the soul is banished in a sense. Me'igra Rama Labira Amikta. The language of Kabbalah. Me'igra Rama, from the great tower, from the highest of heights, Labira Amikta, to the lowest of depths. That's the journey of the soul. But if you think that's where the journey ends, if you think that's bad enough, just wait, it gets worse. It gets worse. What happens now? The soul is in this world. Guess what? Not only is it floating around in this reality, dealing with the stuff of this world, now God gives it another challenge. And God says to the soul, now try this on for size. You're going to go into a body and deal with all that stuff of the body. Oh boy, now it's a party. Now, not only is the soul found in a world that is not immediately divine, not immediately godly, now the soul has to contend with a body. Yeah, you know what a body, you know what it's like to deal with a body? You probably know, right? Because we're all dealing with this. Oh, the body's hungry. Oh, you had a good idea. Nope, body's hungry. Well, body's lazy, body's tired, body doesn't want to move, body is not. Imagine the soul's frustration. If the soul's like, all right, let's go, get up and let's go pray and let's do a mitzvah, let's give tzedakah, let's study some Torah, and the body's like, nope, I'm staying in bed. Let's go, we got things to do. Nope, we're good in bed. I mean, this is and I'm giving you like the easy conversations between body and soul, right? Just the notion of, yeah, I'm tired, that's like one of the easier challenges that the body presents to the soul. I don't need to mention the other stuff because use your own imagination. The point is, the body presents a tremendously fierce challenge to the soul. And the soul contends with two challenges, right? The world that we live in, and more specifically, and number two, the body that it has been given as a spacesuit, right? It's wearing the body, or it's like inside the body. It's making the body alive and making the body animated. Meanwhile, the body has its own agenda. The truth is, without getting into it right now, Tanya explains there's another soul. We're talking about the godly soul. There's an animal soul, which is an instinctual soul, a very reactive part of ourselves, a lower self that says, oh, I'm hungry, oh, I'm tired, ooh, that looks good, ooh, that looks shiny, right? Whatever it is, then it gets distracted and it gets us into trouble. So the godly soul, which is the focus of tonight's conversation, the godly soul has it from all angles. I mean, it's challenged like no one's business. And so the notion that the godly soul, the notion that we, right, composite of godly soul, animal soul, body, in this world, all that stuff, right, that we, you and I, should feel love toward God, or feel awe or respect or fear toward God, I mean, that's a Herculean effort. That's a big deal. It's attainable, but I'm just saying it's a big deal. And he acknowledges that in tonight's Tanya discussion. So I want to jump in because we have some really amazing topics to explore, a lot of really deep concepts, and I'm excited to explore this with you. So I'm going to share my screen. This is chapter 42 of Tanya. What I'm sharing with you now, you can find readily available on Chabad.org. Just Google Chabad.org, Tanya chapter 42, something like that, and it should come up. This is coming from the translation of Tanya known as Lessons in Tanya, which is a bit of a more modern translation than the original, plus it has some commentary in it, which is kind of cool. So I want to pick up our discussion inside with this paragraph right over here that I'm highlighting in blue. And this is where he talks about the meaning of the word dat, which we said a few moments ago is where you really take to heart and you really integrate kind of theoretically what you believe in, where it becomes real to you. Let's do this. For it is known, we're jumping inside right now. For it is known that dat connotes union, as in the verse, and Adam yada literally knew Eve. So dat, which is translated as knowledge, also means an intimate form of connection, as the Torah uses this phrase with regards to Adam and Eve's intimacy. Right? The Torah says Adam knew Eve, and then she got pregnant, and then she gave birth to a child. So clearly, knowing is not just knowing. Knowing is a reference or a euphemism for a very deep and intimate connection. And the same thing is true with the soul power, with the koach hanefesh, with the power of the soul that we call dat. Dat is not just, oh, I know something, I know about it. No, that's bina. Bina is you know about it. Chachma is a new insight. Bina is analyzing it and really understanding it. Dat is something else. Dat is translated as knowledge, but it means much more than knowledge. Dat is where you connect intimately with that thing that you know. It's not just theory, it is practical. When it comes to God, it means it's not just that you know about God. Yeah, you know, I believe that there's a creator. I know there's a creator. I believe in it. I believe in a creator. Yeah, the world didn't make itself. I believe there's a creator. I believe there's a higher power. There's a higher force. Great. Now what? What does it mean for you? Right? How does that translate into practical day-to-day life? That's where dat comes in. How real is that to you? How much will that influence your behavior, your actions, your thoughts, your speech, etc.? Let's jump in. Oh, you know what? Let's do this paragraph. We may have done this at the end of last week, but we're about to get into some new material. This capacity and this quality of attaching one's dat to God, so that he not only understands but also feels godliness and so becomes wholly united with him. Remember, it's all about the relationship, the emotional relationship, which is the key to that is dat. So that capacity is present, that ability is present in every soul of the house of Israel by virtue of its nurture, Yanika, from the soul of our teacher Moses, peace unto him. What he's saying is, if you have a connection with somebody like Moses, right, that makes it that much easier. If you have a good role model, somebody who lives with this reality, someone who walks the walk, not just talks the talk, it becomes easier to feel it. The closest example I can give, the best example I can give is hanging around, and I was younger, I was young, I didn't, but hanging around the Lubavitcher Rebbe, right, the Chabad Rebbe, the Chabad leader, who passed away in 1994, when you hung around the Lubavitcher Rebbe, you heard him talk about Judaism, Yiddishkeit, Torah, Mitzvot, God. It was real. It wasn't a theory. It was legit. It was the real deal. You can watch, to this day, you can watch videos of the Rebbe, you can listen to talks, you can read teachings of the Rebbe. It was real. And when you were around that, at least in those moments, you know what? You also felt something. It rubbed off. The reality rubbed off on you. That's what it means. You have a Moses, you have a good role model, you feel it. It becomes real. It becomes alive. It's kind of like, I'm thinking now in art, like a stick figure. You can draw a stick figure, like a two-dimensional, little circle for the head, little arms. That's the extent of my artistic abilities, by the way. Maybe not, but that's almost the extent of my artistic abilities. But imagine a stick figure coming to life, not 2 dimensions, not 3 dimensions, with color, with depth and width, and the whole, a very dynamic experience. That's the difference whether you don't have dat or whether you have dat. If you don't have dat, everything is flat, it's 2-dimensional, it's black and white, it's like a stick figure relationship with God. Yeah, it kind of exists theoretically, but it's not animated, it's not vibrant. When you have dat, it becomes alive. And what helps with that? Having a good role model, having a Moses to look to. Now, let's continue. Because now we talk about exactly tonight's topic, which is the challenge that the soul faces day in and day out. Only, it's just that since the soul has clothed itself in the body, right? Remember what I said before? The soul came down to this earth, which is a dark place for the soul. And then, to make things worse, so to speak, it's now clothed inside the body. The body is surrounding it. Gewalt. Therefore, it needs a great and mighty exertion, doubled and redoubled, in order to feel and be attached to God. Look at what he says. In order to feel, it's not just enough to rely on a Moses. Yeah, I got a Moses. That's good. Nope. You need more effort. Even with that, you need personal effort. Because of the condition that the soul is in. The fact that it's hidden not just behind one layer, right, which is the world, but it's hidden behind the second layer, which is the body. It therefore needs a very great exertion, a very great effort. And look at the language that he says. Doubled and redoubled, right? Again and again. Magnified more and more. An energy that is greater and greater in order to actually feel something for God. Again, you can do a mitzvah. You can do it, but maybe you're not feeling it. How do we do things so that we feel? That's the discussion. How do we feel close to God? That's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder. Okay, so he's talked about 2 types of effort, 2 types of exertion, so he's going to explain what those are. Right? Remember he said doubled and redoubled? That means like 2 different steps. Here we go. Number 1, first, is the exertion of the flesh. To throw off the bodily shackles, to pound the body, i.e. to weaken its corporeality, and gain its submission so that it shall not obscure the light of the soul. So the first thing that we need to do is climb out of the shackles of the body. That's the first step, right? You have to, and the only way to do that is a little bit to humble the body, to make the body less imprisoning of the soul, right? At the end of the day, it's somewhat of a zero-sum game. Like, either I'm going to be self-obsessed or I'm going to be source-obsessed. Either I'm obsessed with myself, or I'm into my creator. I'm into, something higher than myself. Which one is it? The body's into self. The body is all about self. The body is very ego-driven, very egocentric. So step one is diminish the ego a drop, just a little bit, right? A little bit. And how do you do that? Yet, exactly. Mark is saying to make it less of a husk, to crack, to break it open a little bit, right? Imagine, I'm trying to think of a good example of something where you kind of have to loosen the husk. Yeah, I guess a nut. You crack the nut open, but that's totally getting rid of it. But I mean something where you're loosening it a little bit so that it can breathe. You got to give the soul a little bit of oxygen here. So the body has to be a little bit less strong, if you will. I don't mean physically, but I mean less fierce in its opposition to the soul. So I want to give you an example that's brought in other Hasidic texts. It may seem like a very simple example, but I think there's a lot of power to it. And let me share this with you. Many people have a set time for lunch. Yeah, 12 noon is lunch. 12 o'clock lunch. Now, here, right, Intown Jewish Academy, no, 12 o'clock is daily power parsha. So I don't know what you're talking about lunch. We study Torah every single day. But I digress, right? So for many people, we have lunch at noon. One way of throwing off the bodily shackles is to tell the body when it's hungry, you know what? Let's wait another few minutes. A little bit of not allowing the body to push us around. Not being, imagine it's like you're walking your dog. Yeah? Who's walking who? Are you leading the dog, or is the dog schlepping you and you're like being pulled along for the ride? Who's in control? Is your soul in control, or is your body in control? I'm not saying don't eat. And these discourses that talk about this example are not saying don't eat. Have your lunch. You can have your lunch and eat it too. Right? No problem. Enjoy. B'te'avon. But understand, there might be value. Let's consider this. Is there value? Might there be value in telling the body, you know what? I'm going to learn or pray or study or do something positive for another 5 minutes. You're going to wait for another 5 minutes. That's called weakening the grasp of the body over the soul. That's kind of tilting the momentum a little bit toward the direction of soul over body. Because Lord knows, God knows that the momentum is stacked against the soul. The body is very much leaning against the soul. The body is a very, very, very strong force in shackling and imprisoning the soul. That's the reality. That's the, imagine like a submarine underwater, right? A submarine deep underwater. There's a lot of pressure, right? The lower you go in the water, the more the pressure builds up. Submarines have to be really strong to resist the pressure, the force of that water. So that's what's going on here. The soul is in a low space, spiritually low space. There's a lot of pressure against the soul. This is something, I'm giving you one example that's not stated here, but stated in other places in Kabbalah and Hasidic philosophy. One example of where, on a very practical level, you can tell your body, wait a minute, it's fine. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. We're gonna have food. It's not. Don't worry. Don't panic. Take it easy. It's just about being a little bit more in control, taking control over the body and not letting the body take control over ourselves. So that's one example. So this is what he calls exertion of the flesh. It means to, in some way, weaken the body's materialistic, pursuits. A little bit, just a little bit, take a few, pull up on the gas over there, a little few miles per hour less on that, the body full force. Okay. And by the way, look what he says here. When you do that, it helps that it helps not obscure the light of the soul, right? When the body is full force, it covers the light of the soul. When you pull back on the body, the soul can come out. It reminds me of, coronavirus. People talk about this. Yeah, people stop driving, at least for a while. What happens? Nature returns, right? All of the birds are chirping louder than ever. Remember like a few months ago when things were really shut down. Suddenly, there's a renaissance to nature. Nature is blossoming and blooming. What did it take? It took a little bit of pulling back on the other stuff, and then the nature emerges. The same thing as body and soul. Pull back a little bit on the body, and the soul's light begins to emerge. That's it, right? It's a very clear formula. Let's continue. As has been mentioned above, in the name of the Zohar, this is a really powerful statement from the Zohar, which is the primary work of Kabbalah, an ancient work of Kabbalah. It says there that a body into which the light of the soul does not penetrate should be crushed. So if a person realizes or senses that their soul, they know they have a soul inside, but the light of the soul is not doing its thing. It's not catching on fire. It's not illuminating the body itself. So you have to crush the body a little bit. And we have to be careful with the word crush. We're not talking about self-harm, God forbid. Again, doing things a little bit to take away from the arrogance, if you will, of the body, or the death grip that maybe that's a little too intense, but the really tight grip that the body has over the soul. The example, he's giving a quick reference because he mentioned it before in the previous chapter. That was chapter 29, as you see here in the floating footnote, beginning of chapter 29. It says over there, it gives the example of a log of wood. And I love this example because it reminds me of my days in camp on overnights. Yeah, making a bonfire. So everyone's gathered on this trip and you're around the bonfire, and you want to get the bonfire, well, let's say before the bonfire, you're gathered around the fire pit and you want to get the fire started. How do you get the fire started? So imagine somebody says, I found a massive log, like a tree stump style log. Let's roll it to the middle and light it on fire. Anyone who has experience in lighting fires will say, that's not going to work. You can't take a log and light it on fire. It's not going to work. You have to cut the log up into small pieces, splinter the log, and when you have little pieces of kindling, of wood, splinters, then that will catch on fire, and then you graduate from smaller pieces to larger size to medium sized pieces, and then eventually, hopefully, the log can catch on fire. The same thing is true when it comes to the body. Sometimes when we're not putting our materialistic urges in check, the body is like that tree stump, and it's not catching on fire with the fire of the soul. Right? The soul is there, the flame of the soul is there, and it's against the body, so to speak, but it's not catching. It's not lighting it up in a positive way. It's not illuminating the body. Well, you gotta break it down a little bit. You use the word crush. All right, that's a bit of a harsh term, but it means, splinter it a little bit. Yeah? Cut back on something, even if you're not cutting back objectively, but switch the timing, like I said before. There are many different ways in which we can kind of, break open this container, if you will, of the body. Let's continue. That's all number one. Again, and we're talking about in the context of developing an emotional relationship with God. How do you develop an emotional relationship with God in this world, in this body? Number one, try to work on, opening the body up a little bit more. And the second, what's the second effort? We talked about doubled and redoubled effort. The second effort is exertion of the soul. Not only the body needs work, even the soul needs work. The soul as it appears, as it exists down here, also needs work. I hope you understand and appreciate what he's saying. What he's saying here is that the soul faces two challenges. Number one, from the body, and also number two, just from being in this environment. The soul needs some work. It needs some focus to reveal the powers of the soul, that the service of exerting one's thought not be burdensome to it. Look at that. Look what he says here. I'll repeat that line. This is soul work, right? This is not body work. This is soul work. And what's the work? That the service of exerting one's thought not be burdensome to it. It's not easy to meditate. That's what it means to exert one's thought. It means to really focus on something until an emotion is born. That's not easy. It's not easy. We live in a very short attention span world, right? All short sound bites. Very quick, very quick. It's hard. More than ever, it's hard to really exert our thought, to really focus on something. that could feel burdensome. It could feel like, oh no, I can't do it. It's too difficult. You want me to meditate on something for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes? Too difficult. That's the exertion of the soul. And what's the work? To delve into and reflect upon the greatness of God for a long and uninterrupted period. Look what he says there. To literally think about God, reflect on God's greatness for a long and uninterrupted period. If I told you, I want you tomorrow to take 30 minutes, uninterrupted, no emails, no text, no phone calls, no eating, nothing, just you and reflection upon the greatness of God. 30 minutes. Could you do it? Very difficult. I don't know. By the way, I'm not just pointing, toward you. I'm also speaking to myself. It's not easy. Uninterrupted and focused reflection is not easy, especially when we're talking about God, because we want to focus on a sunset. That's one thing. On the Grand Canyon. Okay, you're there anyway. You might as well meditate on it. But you want to focus on God. It's not easy. Let's continue. For this measure of time necessary. Oh, look what he says here. For this measure of time necessary to immerse oneself in a godly concept in order to arouse love or fear of God is not the same for every soul. He says there's not just one formula for how long you need to meditate in order to develop these emotions that we're trying to achieve. Some people require more time, he says, and others less. There is, he's giving examples now, there is, for example, the naturally refined soul, a very edel soul, right? A very refined, sensitive soul, which immediately upon considering the greatness of God attains a fear and dread of him. Let me back up for a second. Would you agree that in life, you and I know many people. Would you agree that there are people that have more sensitive souls than others? And when I say sensitive, I mean their personalities are more sensitive. Like they'll see something and they'll cry. They'll just be like, just emotionally, they're very available. I don't know if available is the right word, but they're very sensitive. And they see something, immediately it stirs an emotion. They hear something, they feel the emotion. Maybe that's you. Maybe that's someone you love. And at the same time, we know that there are other people who it takes a little bit of more stimuli to evoke emotion. It takes a little bit more prodding, or a little bit more, I don't know, to get them to feel something. So he says the same thing is true with souls. There are certain souls that he calls naturally refined. And immediately upon considering the greatness of God, they attain a fear and dread of him. And that means like the awe and respect. That sounds like a negative, but right. So immediately when you think of when these types of souls think about God, immediately they're, whoa, God. Okay, that's as it is written in Shulchan Aruch Arachaim, it's the Code of Jewish Law, section 1. Look what it says there. It says, when a person, and when a human being reflects that the great King, the supreme King of kings, the Holy One, blessed be He, with whose glory the whole world is filled, when a person reflects on the fact that God stands over him and sees his actions, he will immediately, highlighted immediately, he will immediately be overcome with fear. That's what it says in the Code of Jewish Law. All you need to do is reflect on God standing over you and seeing your actions, and immediately you will be overcome with fear. And somebody says, nope, they don't work. I tried. I told myself that God is standing over me, and I told myself that God is seeing my actions, and you know what? I didn't feel a thing. That's his point, right? Some people, when they think about that, they immediately become overcome with fear. The Code of Jewish Law is kind of speaking to people that when they think about God, they're immediately struck with some sort of emotion. But that's only certain souls. For many of us, it doesn't work like that. As he continues, there's also a soul that is of, and this he's not meaning to denigrate, God forbid. He's just, explaining. There's a soul that's of a more lowly nature and origin, coming from the lower gradations of the 10 Sefirot of Asiyah. I need to explain. All souls come from God. But as they tumble through the Seder Hishtalshel, remember I told you about the chain that starts from above and goes below? So as the soul goes through those various states, so some souls pass through untarnished. Right? Imagine like a water slide. This is so random. I'm giving you a random example. Sorry, I'm pre-calling it out as a very random analogy. But imagine a water slide. Yeah? So water slide, like a high water slide, maybe it's one of those twirly water slides with the loop-de-loops or whatever it is, whatever. Great. So some people come down the water slide unscathed. As they were up there, no bumps, no bruises. Some people along the way, they hit a wall, they bumped themselves, they scraped an elbow, they got a little bit of a burn on their legs, whatever it is, you got some battle scars. You still had fun, but the journey had a bit of an impression and an effect on the person. The same is true when it comes, well, again, obviously not exactly the same, but in concept, in theory, the same is true when it comes to the soul. All souls start at the top of the water slide. That's for sure. They all start with God. So that's he's not saying that some souls only come from this, the 10 Sefirot of Asiya, like they're in their original origins. No. All souls come from God. They're all a piece of God. However, as they tumble through, as they come down that chutes and ladders, that slip and slide of the Seder Shtalshalut, some souls are untouched, unscathed, and you can, when you look at those souls, you see the origin. Oh wow, I see Atzilut, I see the highest world. Some souls, it looks like you can see the battle scars. You can see some imprints from the lower dimensions. And so a soul that's been imprinted, affected by the lower worlds, that soul might be unable to discover godliness by contemplation, except with difficulty and forceful insistence. So that person might think about God and not feel anything. Think about God again, nope, still nothing. And the only way to feel something will be difficult and with forceful insistence. It's going to take a lot of work and a lot of meditation and a lot of practice and a lot of focused thought to start feeling something toward God. So his point here is, right, everyone operates differently and everyone responds differently to these meditations. So some people will immediately respond with the feeling, with the emotion. Right? Some people will meditate, will think about God and God's in control and immediately feel something. But others, it's going to be a little bit more difficult. For others, it's going to be a situation where it's going to take a lot of effort and an exertion. And you might feel for a certain amount of time like it's not working. Like I'm trying all this stuff, I'm thinking about God, and I don't even know what I'm thinking about anymore, and it's not working, I'm not feeling anything. So chapter 42 in Tanya, it's encouraging. He says, don't worry. All that means is you're normal. It means that you came down the water slide and it's normal. So keep on trying, keep on going, keep on pushing, and eventually you're gonna have a breakthrough. He says even more so. Now let's up the ante, if you will, or down the ante, if that makes sense. Especially if the soul is not only of a lowly nature, as it took on some of the effects of the lower realms, but in addition, imagine if the soul had been defiled by the sin of youth. Right? Then it really is a little bit desensitized. For one's sins interpose between a Jew and God, as is written in Sefer Hasidim. The point is that certain sins of youth, we're young and chasing things that we shouldn't be chasing, that can often lead to a desensitivity of the soul, or where the soul itself is sensitive, but we are a little bit desensitized, and it's going to take more effort in contemplation, meditation, in order to really achieve some feelings for God. Nevertheless, again, and here's the hopeful message, nevertheless, with difficulty and with forceful effort, when his thought greatly exerts itself with vigor and great toil and intense concentration, immersing itself in contemplation of the greatness of God for a long time, that was a long sentence, still not done, then there will certainly come to him at least the lower level fear referred to above, enough to prevent him from doing something which is opposed to God's will. The point is that with enough effort, everyone can achieve something. So never despair. Even if you tried, you studied, you're not feeling anything. Like, what? I know ideas, but I don't feel. Don't worry. Keep on going. By the way, I would say, and I'm not going out on a limb on this, the individuals who are immediately inspired, the first time they think about God, they start feeling things. The rare few, the exceptions, right? They exist somewhere, but it's more the exception than the rule. The rule is more along the lines of the last two examples that we gave. People who get distracted easily. People who, even when they think about God, I'm not feeling, like, what do you want me to feel? I'm not sure what to feel. Like, am I feeling it yet? I don't know. Let me check in with the rabbi. I don't know. Right? So, if you don't know that you're feeling it, you're probably not feeling it. So, or coupled with, mistakes that we made as when we were younger, and maybe he's being kind saying younger, because, we're always making mistakes. But the point is that it compounds to create a situation where we may not feel right away. Don't give up. Keep on pushing. Keep on trying. Keep on meditating, and it's gonna breathe. It's gonna give birth to success. And here he quotes such a beautifully positive statement from the Talmud, Tractate Megillah 6b. And as the rabbis of blessed memory have said, I love this. If a person says, I have labored and I have found, believe him. Let me decode that message. The Talmud says, if someone says, Yagaiti v'lo matzasi al tami, if somebody says, I tried really hard, but I didn't succeed, don't believe him. If you really try, no, I don't believe him. If somebody says, I succeeded, and I didn't even try, don't believe him either. But if somebody says, I tried, I worked hard, and I succeeded, that's the match. And then that makes sense. Somebody says, I worked and worked and worked, and it didn't go anywhere, you got to keep on working. I don't believe there's something wrong with that story. Somebody says, no effort. Look at me, I'm a natural. Also, don't believe. Someone says, I put in the effort and I succeeded. Good. That's the magic formula. That's the winning formula. So he says the same thing as here. We're not going to. You and I are probably not going to be the ones who, just the moment we meditate on God's reality, we're filled, with real palpable emotions. It's probably not going to be our story. But our story could be that we work hard. Right? Like in any area, you have people that are naturally gifted, and then you have people that worked hard. You have people that are natural musicians, people that, the first time they heard music, they were already playing it in their heads. And the first time they sat down at a keyboard, they were already, playing it from by ear. And then you have people that don't have that natural talent or that natural ability, but they work hard. They practice for hours each day. And eventually they become a master of that art, of making music, of playing piano. Why? Because of the hard work. That's the formula that he's advocating here. What he's trying to do is encourage us, because this is all about meditation. It's all about mindfulness. It's all about developing these emotions toward God, which is really critical in our relationship with God. And his point is, if it's not working, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Don't give up. Keep on going. Keep on pushing. And you'll find some gains. You're going to have gains. Take a look. It is also written. This is such a great verse that he's quoting now. This is from Mishlei Proverbs. It is also written, with regard to the success one achieves when he labors to attain the fear of God. It says like this. King Solomon writes, if you seek it like money and search for it as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of God. What a rich, no pun intended, what an incredibly rich statement. I'm going to read it again. If you seek it like money and search for it as for hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of God. And let me explain it, and then we're going to read it inside. Imagine you're walking on the beach, and you have one of those metal detectors. Yeah? You know those things, those metal detectors? And you're looking for coins. Maybe even a buried treasure. Maybe there was a pirate, yeah, who buried that treasure right there on the beach that you're on. Now, what are the odds? Probably not great, but you're trying your luck. Okay? How focused are you going to be on any one area? You're probably not going to be that focused, right? Because you're not sure. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not there. But let me give you another scenario. Imagine if you had a diamond ring and you were on the beach and you were holding that diamond ring and it slipped out of your fingers and it fell into the sand and it got buried in the sand. How hard would you look? How hard would you look? You would look really hard. And you wouldn't stop until you found it, because it's not that maybe there's a diamond ring here. You know there's a diamond. You just dropped it. You know there's a diamond ring there. You see the difference between possible and a case of possibility and a case of certainty? When it's possible there's a diamond there, you'll look a little bit, but you're not going to drive yourself crazy, because who says there's anything there anyway? But when you know it's there, you're gonna strive. You're not going to give up until you get the prize. And the same thing is true when it comes to our spiritual meditation and our spiritual emotions, our emotions toward God. But he says here, you have to believe that you have the capacity of love and fear of God or awe for God inside of you. If you believe that that treasure is inside, then you're not going to give up until you unleash it, until you find it. Right? If you think, well, maybe I'll feel something for God, but maybe I never will. If it's like maybe this way, maybe that way, then you're going to give up. You have to think of it as looking for your money that you dropped, looking for your coin, looking for your diamond. You know it's there. That's how you need to pursue it. Let's read it inside. Such a beautiful interpretation. I'm going to highlight the words that we're up to. This means, in the manner of a person seeking a hidden treasure, buried in the depths of the earth, for which he digs with tireless toil, for he knows that it is surely buried there. That's the key. Because he knows that it's there, and you're not going to give up until you find it, so must one delve with unflagging energy in order to reveal the treasure of the fear of heaven which lies buried and concealed in the understanding of the heart of every Jewish individual. This understanding, we're skipping to this line here, this understanding of the heart being of a quality and level transcending the limitations of time, and this is the natural hidden fear referred to above. Inside our heart and soul, inside certainly our godly soul, is this fear. And fear, I know I say this every time I say the word fear, so just, you know what to expect. Don't think of it as fear in a negative way, but think of it as a sense of awe and a sense of respect, reverence toward God. Every one of us, we each have this inside of us. And if we're not feeling it, all it means is that we haven't uncovered this treasure. And it's a treasure. To feel something toward God is a treasure. But we might not be feeling it. And if we're not feeling it, we have to work. We have to keep on digging until we find it, until we access it. Keep on digging. And by digging, I mean meditating. Right? That's the digging here. Keep on thinking. Keep on meditating. So it's inside of us. It's inside of each of us. That's why it's called natural hidden fear. It's natural because it's there. It's hidden because it's not always apparent. It's like the ring that you know is there, but it fell and now it's buried. So you have that, but we have that. We all have that. But it's not revealed. However, back inside, in order that it should be translated into action, in the sense of fear of sin, and a practical level, so that one will turn away from evil in deed, word, and thought. Let me just jump in right in the middle of the sentence to remind you of our thief. The thief is about to break in. You know what he needs a good dose of? You know what he needs a real strong, upside the head of? I just highlighted it. Fear of sin. That's what he needs. He needs a good dose of abstention from what he's about to do. This guy's about to break in and steal from someone else. Yeah? He needs a big dose of cease and desist. Like, don't do this. Stop. We each have that capacity. We each have the capacity to have that fear of sin, to have that, that sense of I'm going to shy away, or not just shy away, but I'm going to hold myself back from doing what I shouldn't be doing. That's the emotion. The emotion is what drives that stoppage, that stopping from going further. It's like, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. You ever have that feeling where you wanted to do something, part of you really wanted to do it, but you said, at the last minute, I just can't do it. I just can't do it. It would be too big. It would be too far, going too far. That would be too hurtful or too wrong or too whatever. That's what we're talking about. How do we bring that? How do we evoke that within ourselves? Well, that's an emotion. It's an emotional reaction that comes through the meditation that is really, in truth, inside of us inherently, but it's buried under layers of sand, i.e. body, and we have to bring that out. So in order that it should be translated into action, this fear of God, in the sense of fear of sin, so that one will turn away from evil in deed, word, and thought, on a literal level, one will stop doing something they shouldn't be doing. So in order for that to happen, one needs to bring it to light from the hidden depths of the understanding of the heart where it transcends time, and to place it within the realm of actual thought that is in the brain. It's great that the soul is timeless, and the soul has a timeless love and fear of God. That's wonderful, but I need it right now. It's great that it transcends time, but I need it, 9:04 p.m. on a Thursday evening. I'm about to do something I shouldn't be doing. I need this right now. I don't need this in theory, in concept, in the higher worlds, in the recesses of my heart and soul. That's wonderful. I need it right now. My feet need it. My fingers need it. My brain needs it. My mouth needs it. My thoughts need it. I need this right now. I need this at my fingertips. I don't need it in theory. I need it in practice. So that's where the meditation comes in. So let's continue. We're almost going to, it's 9:05. We're going to close it. Give me another 60 seconds or 90 seconds. Let's just finish off these few lines. This means, how do we do this? Immersing his thought in it for a lengthy period of time. You notice this is a theme. A few times you've had this tonight. There's no shortcuts. I mean, maybe you're the type of person that you just think about God and immediately you're filled with these emotions. Great, kol hakavod. But if not, then you may need this approach, which is investing the time until its effect will emerge from the potential into the actual, so that it affects the soul and body of man, i.e. human being, so that he will turn away from evil and do good, and rather do good in thought, speech, and action, because of God, who looks and sees, hears and listens, and perceives all his deeds and searches his kidneys and heart. God's real. Look, we said this before. If somebody was next to you, would you do that? No. If they were looking at you, would you do it? No. Would you say it? No. Good. God's watching. All right? I don't feel it. That doesn't mean the same thing to me. Okay, that's normal. Meditate on it. But I did and it didn't work. Keep on going. You know what it says? It says there's a Hasidic aphorism, Hasidic statement that I love. It says 3 things are guaranteed to work. And if they don't work, you need more of it for it to work. Alcohol, money, and Hasidic meditation. Alcohol is guaranteed to make you drunk. If a person says, I don't know, I drink and I'm not drunk, you didn't drink enough. Keep on drinking, you'll get drunk. Yeah, when it comes to money, money makes you meshuga. You know what that means? It makes you a little bit crazy. Yeah, if somebody says, no, I have money, I'm not crazy, you don't have enough money. Get more money, you'll become meshuga. And the same thing is true with the third element. When it comes to the study of Hasidic philosophy and these meditations. Yeah, these make us more refined and more feeling, sensitive, spiritually feeling human beings. If a person says, I don't know, I studied, I meditated, and it didn't work, it means you got to keep on going. You just got to keep on going until it hits, right? The mashka will hit, the money will hit, the Hasidus, the Hasidic philosophy and the meditation, it's going to hit at some point. Just keep on going. Don't give up before you get there. Keep on going. As the rabbis of blessed memory said in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers, reflect upon 3 things and you will not come to sin. What are the 3 things? Know what is above you. Number 1. Well, he cuts it off. An eye that sees, an ear that hears, and I think the third part was that all your deeds are recorded for posterity. So anyway, the point is that just on a very simple meditation level, God is real. God is here. God is with me right now in my room. God is with me. And if that seems theoretical, keep on going. And although God has no bodily likeness, so what does it mean that God has an eye that sees and an ear that hears? It's not a limitation to God. On the contrary, he says. This is the very reason that everything is revealed and known to him infinitely more than, for example, through the physical medium of sight and hearing. Yeah, our sight and hearing is limited to these tools. So if it's not in our line of sight, oh, you didn't see it. If it doesn't hit the sound waves, don't hit our ears, we can't hear it. But God has awareness that's not limited to bodily holes in the head, right? Eyes and ears, right? God's perception is not limited to the physical. So on the contrary, it's not like, oh, if God doesn't have eyes and ears, he can't hear. No. If God doesn't have physical body, which God doesn't, then God can see and hear infinitely more than we can hear and see, because it's not coming through those mediums. By way of illustration, God seeing and hearing is like a man, like a person who knows and feels within him all that's happening to him and being experienced by each of his 248 organs, such as cold and heat, feeling even the heat in his toenails, for example, as when he is scorched by fire. So also their essence and substance and all that is affected in or by them is known to the person and sensed in his brain. This and that's where we're closing it for today. What he says is, when you know how you feel, you have a headache, you know it. You don't have to hear it. You don't have to see it. You sense it. Oh, wait a second. Whoa, slow down. Whoa. How did you know you have a headache? Who told you? Who told you? Wait, you saw it? You heard it? So how do you know? Aha! You see that? You must not know that you have a headache. I know of a headache because I know of a headache. I have perception. It's me. It's part of me. I know without these faculties. I know from the inside out. God also knows everything from the inside out. We're not any greater than God. You know what's going on with you. God knows what's going on with him and with the whole universe, because everything's ultimately united with him. That's the way it works. You stubbed your toe. It hurts. Yeah. Did anyone have to tell you? Did you have to look down to see it? You have to hear it. Hear the sound. You feel it. Good. God also senses. God also has awareness. Again, it's a physical example, and it's a much greater sensitivity when it comes to God. But nonetheless, we can see this type of correlation. Okay, this closed out for tonight. So what's the point of our session tonight? The points that I wanted to share are as follows. And here's a very quick 40-second summary of tonight's class. Number one, the soul is up against a big challenge. The soul comes from an incredibly lofty place and it's found in an incredibly lowly place. And the deck is stacked against it. The odds are stacked against it. It's in a physical environment. It's in a world where godliness is not the most prized value, and it's in a body that has its own agenda. So how do you begin feeling something toward God? So the key is meditation, and the key is really focused meditation and not giving up until you, little by little, until you get those emotions. And we explained that some people it's going to come easy, some people it's going to come much harder, but don't give up, because it's like that treasure that you dropped. You dropped that. It's there. It's not like, well, maybe I'll never feel. Don't say that. It's inside of you. The treasure is there. You just have to keep on pushing away enough of the sand to get to the treasure. So that's the second piece of it. And the third piece that we just said is the notion of, what was the third piece? Let me look again very quickly. What we just said. Oh, yeah. We said that, what does it look like practically? It looks like when a person actually desists from doing something they shouldn't do because they feel that God is with them. They feel that God is with them, and it's not right to do this. It's not nice to do this if God's right with me. That's what we're talking about as far as feeling God. Feeling God to the point where you would actually not do something because God is felt with you. That's kind of cool. It's attainable. It's attainable through hard work, through meditation. So let's meditate. Let's keep on thinking, contemplating about God, and please God, the emotions will follow. All right, that's it for tonight. We're making good progress through chapter 42 of Tanya. These are very big chapters. These are unusually large chapters, 41, 42, but we're making our way through it, and I hope these points are resonating. So don't give up. You got the treasure inside. You got that wellspring of emotion. Your soul wants oxygen. Give it some room to breathe. Let the body. It has plenty of opportunities. Let your soul have a few opportunities on the side as well. All right, thank you for joining me tonight for Tanya, Think Different. It's great to see you all. I want to wish you a good evening. And of course, it's Thursday night already, so Shabbat Shalom. Have a good Shabbos. We're on 12 noon for those that join us for Daily Power Parsha. Join me tomorrow for insights into the Torah portion. And Sunday, we have a Jewish fireside chat with Mrs. Shandy Jacobson. The topic is everything I learned about happiness, I learned from sadness. Something like that. Actually, you know what? Maybe I should pull up the actual text. It's a very powerful title, and I don't want to mess it up. The title is... Here it is. Everything I know about happiness, I learned from sadness. Very, very powerful talk. Sunday evening, 7 p.m. And of course...
Fireside chat.
Fireside, yeah, that's the Fireside Chat, Sunday, 7 p.m. Mrs. Shandy Jacobson, just so you know, is the director of the Rosh Chodesh Society, which is the courses, the curriculum that's produced for the women's groups around the world that we have also by us. Leah, my wife, teaches, and Dina Schusterman teaches. She is the director and really the driving force behind it. She's an incredible educator and just a very dynamic speaker. So you're in for a really big treat Sunday, 7 p.m. All right, that's it. That's it for today. Great to see you. I'm going to sign off. Ronnie will see you. Bethany will see you. Adina Malka will see you. Linda will see you. Mark will see you. Fran and Dror, great to see you guys.
Shabbat shalom.
Stan, it's good to see you.
Nice to
Sandrine,
meet you, Susie.
Susie, and of
Bye.
course Lisa. We'll see you all. I enjoyed it. Hope you enjoyed it as well.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
everybody.
shalom.
Shalom, everyone.
Take